An inlet of rock and sand by the sea, it is I that you see. For many years the waves lapped against me. I shifted to greet them from time to time, but in others I was shy, hiding my coast.
They were an expected presence, a constant in my youth. Slowly, though, I grew tentative of them. I asked the tide, why scrape at me?
She answered, nothing has changed. Surely something did, for now I feel pain.
The waves grew taller all the same. In high tide I reshaped my front, while in low I was left to deliberate. Were allies brought to my tidal gates? Investigating a smooth shell one day, I thought he looked rather plain. And then a friendly claw turned him over, revealing rainbow swirls and tear-streaked truth. I was too quick to blame the tide, too naive to behold the moon.
A cove is always changing shape, forming a haven in each wake. An inlet of rock and sand by the sea, it is I that you see. It is on this day, September 20th, 2025, that I am now 2 years on testosterone. And it definitely feels crazy to say. It does not feel like that much time has passed. So the plan for this video is to go through a list of the pros and cons of what all I have been through, and whatever effects I've been told of, but I haven't had. And then I have a major announcement. So while the first half of this video will be very repetitive of all the things I've said in the past, there will be some new information afterward, so please stick around for that. So we'll just jump right into a lot of the pros I've had with my journey on hormone replacement therapy with testosterone. One of the most major changes is voice. You can see the compilation at the beginning of this video. It's not too different. I think a lot of my speech patterns are the same in a lot of ways. And it's not necessarily super deep, which I'm actually very happy with. I didn't want a super deep voice, and there are times that I hear it too deep, and it kind of bothers me if it's too deep. So I'm very happy with where it is at right now, and I still have the capability to go higher, which I appreciate, because there are just some social spaces I have where I want to be able to speak higher, and other ones where I'm more, mellow, more lower down. So overall, I'm very, very, very happy with the way my voice has changed. I was worried originally before I started HRT that it would fundamentally be different and I wouldn't sound like the same person. But I realized at the time, that was an oversight because my personality is a lot of what makes my voice sound the way it does. It's really how you talk, not necessarily your vocal cords, that make your voice identifiable, in my opinion. So that's something I have recognized along the way, and all of my concerns about it are long gone. I am so happy with where it is. I mean, I can't hit high notes anymore, not that I really could beforehand. But I can't even really try to sing women roles. But I can now sing male roles, so, it's an exchange, and I'll take it happily, honestly. One of the major things people have pointed out to me with my change in voice is my change in confidence. It wasn't very noticeable to me until people start pointing it out, but as my voice got deeper, particularly months 3 plus, I just got more and more confident and more willing to speak. I was very, maybe not shy per se, but very introverted, and I would limit my speech, particularly to certain people. With my friends, I'd be very comfortable, but especially in classrooms or, to people I don't know, I just wouldn't say anything ever. I would just avoid any need to talk. But as my voice got deeper, I subconsciously seemingly talked more and more and more, and now I yap all the time. Unexpected side effect, but I think there's just, perhaps it is the happiness, perhaps it's just more comfort with the voice. I definitely was uncomfortable with my voice before, so it could be that as well, just that without the changes. But I talk a lot now, and I talk with confidence. I still have a full well of uncertainty and lack of confidence in a lot of areas, but I definitely have more than before, and I am reconsidering a lot of the things that I previously set aside due to my voice. So, like role-playing games, I avoided because I just didn't want to hear my voice in that context, or karaoke, very similar. I've started playing with those ideas again because I feel I'm comfortable now with where I'm at. So, that's a quick summary of voice. I don't want to get too deep into any of the things in this video because there's a long list, and I'm bad at keeping under an hour to 2 hours, so we're going to try our best. Next major change is body hair. Who would expect? First, I'll talk about facial hair, because that was one of the versions of dysphoria I had the most before I started HRT. I am so happy with my progress with facial hair. It's definitely not a full beard. Also, you all happen to catch me when I shaved recently, so you're not going to be able to see much. But as soon as I started getting the little hairs, that dysphoria went away. I'll be honest. That dysphoria always registered as like a phantom sensation of hair being there, and I'd go to itch it and it wouldn't be. But now that I, like, even having the little hairs, I immediately feel them when I go to scratch it, and it's very satisfying to me. It feels like such a minor detail, particularly to people who are very used to experiencing that or never had an interest in experiencing that. But this sensation of feeling facial hair on my face brings me so much joy and comfort and so many things. It's a really major contributor on this list, I'll be very honest. I will say that, like, when it grows out, it is kind of awkward. You can tell it's still a little wispy, even if, like, it's starting to grow in bulk and darker. It's still not really full facial hair. It's kind of giving teenager. And it's specifically just a chin strap. Nothing, like, it's specifically right there and a bit under here. But, like, none of it's, like, going up on the face, and there's definitely, I have not shaved my mustache at all since I started HRT. So the mustache is just not happening. But I'm able to get, like, a chin strap going, and every once in a while, it's a bit too much, and so I shaved it off. It also helps with oil buildup and other things. Facial cleansing is a habit I need to get back into. It's not something I did much since I was a teenager, I'll be honest. I'm gonna have to periodically take water breaks, I'm sorry. But yeah, facial hair has been a very major contributor. I'm very happy with where it's at. And y'all will see it fluctuate through cycles. I'm very happy. Next, the rate of growth of hair. For body hair, I kind of wanted to break it into, like, categories because there's a lot to address with body hair. So in general, the rate of growth is higher. That's something I really noticed this summer. I noticed it a little bit before. I think, like, the early months, like months 3, like when the hair really started kicking in, I would say like months like 5 or so. I definitely noticed it was faster, but I didn't have a real measure of how much faster it was until earlier this summer when I shaved my legs. I shaved my legs for reasons I will not explain, but I always like playing with feminine things. That's something might get to at the end of this video, but I kind of just wanted to see what it was like again because I haven't done it in a long time. And I wasn't very comfortable back then, so I wanted to see what it was like when I'm in a more comfortable state. And one hell of a sensation. It's been a long time since I felt that, so that was a wild experience. And I was pretty happy with that, but that's a side note. The hair growed in so fast. I was kind of shocked. It was within the week. I was already getting hair coming back. So this is very, very noticeable difference. I think when I was a teenager, during my first puberty, it would take a while to grow back. So I think that's something I definitely wanted to point out. Which means that, like, when I shaved my face, like, this already started coming back pretty fast as well. I tried to cut, like, as close as I could. I'm not trying to cut that close, but I didn't feel much, and then I can already start to feel it really coming out. So yeah, pretty fast. And then the next thing, the color of the hair, it is definitely darker than before. When I first started HRT, I had some brown body hair, but it was like a lighter brown. It's kind of like this brown on like this bit. It's kind of like that brown versus, the top of my hair brown. It's gradually growing more and more this color. So it's definitely a noticeable difference. I, again, already had hair in a lot of different locations, but it's definitely started coming darker and thicker over time. And that leads to the last point, which is the pattern that the hair is growing. This, I think, has been fascinating so far. I don't have any problems with it. I think it's just interesting how it's happening. I think, in order, my thigh hair came in first. And then my stomach hair, which I already had some, started to just become darker where I already had it, and then gradually grow outward. It was weird because it was like a bunch in the middle. Who would have thought? But then it started on the hips and then came in. It was very strange. I haven't heard many people talk about the pattern their stomach hair grows in, but it wasn't what I expected. The way it made like a little U at first, and then it started to actually even out. But I have hair like pretty much all the way across and then coming up. It gets less dark as it comes up, so it's like the dark at the low part, and then it comes up. So it's not like weird looking. I'm very content with it, I'll be honest. But it's definitely different. At least where I'm at now versus where I was when I started. I can tell that there was a difference. I don't know when all those changes happened per se. I definitely don't remember when I noticed a lot of these things, to be honest, but it's been very noticeable. The other pattern of growth that I even just want to throw out there is I have one side of my chest that has way more hair than the other. I assume just like below, it will even out eventually, but that's been a very recent development. Like this summer, I have started getting chest hair. Not a lot, like just honestly like 30 hairs total. 35 hairs total. It's not a lot, but it's definitely more on one side, and I haven't seen people mention that before either. So it's been something very interesting. But I definitely enjoy body hair, and I enjoy having the option to not have it when I want to. I think I like to grow it thick until there's a time where I'm like, I want to experiment with short hair again. And so then I could cut it. But because it grows back so fast, I don't have to worry about having that too long. I think it's a very good middle ground for me. I love having long hair, but I like having the option of shorter hair too. And this gives me both. So very happy with body hair pretty much across the board. A lot of people talk about having too much hair growing in certain places. I have not had that. So pretty good all around. I have started getting back hairs too. Not a lot, but there's some happening. They're also pretty light. They're like this color. So, all right. With all that said, we get to the third major change, which I didn't even remember to put in this video because I forgot. Completely forgot. I had to Google it to remember this. Cycles ended. I haven't had to deal with cycles in like a year. I think I had one accidental one because I missed a dose, and that's the real problem I've had is if I miss doses or whatever, it can come back, and I'm very unprepared because I'm not used to being prepared for it anymore. But, oh my god, I 100% forgot about having cycles at all, and as soon as I remembered that, the cringe of the thought of having them, yeah, no. Massive, like crazy improvement. I wonder how vastly that has changed my experience. Because cycles suck. They really do. I don't think anyone really enjoys them per se. And it is kind of a privilege to not have to deal with that anymore, and to reach the point where I don't even remember they existed. As someone who used to have them, I think that's kind of crazy. But makes me super happy. It's not necessarily that the lack of them makes me happy, it's the fact that I don't have to deal with them makes me more happy than I would have been. I would have definitely had... I know the times that I accidentally missed a dose and a cycle happened, I was definitely annoyed, and not very happy about having to deal with that, so... yeah, pretty happy with that. I will say, as a result, I do dream less. It's not necessarily a con, but I used to have a lot of dreams when my cycle was coming, and I pretty rarely dream now, so... oh well. Alright. That's just it for that one. I mean, there's not much to talk about other than I didn't really want to have to deal with that, and it's gone. Fat distribution. So fat distribution is a pretty major topic for testosterone in particular. A lot of people seem to have very negative associations with it of like, oh no, you're going to gain all this fat, or you're going to have a bunch of belly fat. There's definitely a lot of negative imagery with it. I'm very happy with having more belly fat. There's a few reasons why. One, it took some of the fat off my hips, which really bothered me. I am very unsatisfied with my hips. Still, that's like one of the remaining kinds of dysphoria I have. And so having a bigger belly actually kind of balances that out, and that makes me feel good. I also am just not the person, at least from my point of view, I'm just not the person to be like super bony or like just thin. I think there's definitely a balance. You don't want too much, in either direction, but maybe I'm on like a little bit further than I want, but I'm pretty content with the amount I have. And at any point, if I am discontent, I can just work on it and work it down. I'm at the amount I'm at now, not really doing much in the way of like abs and stuff like that. So I feel I'm in a pretty great spot, and I'm very happy with what I have. And again, personally, I appreciate there being more fat than less, including in like other people. I kind of, everyone has like preferences of like body type and shape. And I think I have a pretty wide range from, end to end. But like if I'm choosing for myself, I don't want too far on like the twinkish side. I say that term like very generically in this case. But I'm not really aiming to be thin. I'm kind of aiming to just be average. An average man is kind of sort of where I'm at. I will say it is a little awkward at times with my height. It looks like I should be taller with my width. So I think that's the main thing. The main thing I've noticed regarding the fat distribution is just sometimes I wish I was a little bit taller to like balance it out. But it's not something I have much control over. So there's that. But there's definitely more work I could do, and I'm definitely at some point gonna get fit and see what that looks like, for sure. But the kind of fitness I want to do is not very easy to achieve where I'm at right now. I kind of want like a martial art kind of fitness versus like a gym fitness, if that makes sense. I don't know if people are following my logic there, but that's part of why I haven't like full sent into it, because I just don't have the time to dedicate to that yet. And I am not comfortable enough to go in the gym because of chest dysphoria. I have tried several times, but I feel so not good working out, and it's due to chest dysphoria. We'll talk about that more later. But very happy, not very happy, but content with my my fat distribution, particularly taking away from the hips. That was really what I wanted, and that's what I got. Another major change that I had no idea would happen, and I didn't know it'd be as substantial as it is the shape of my face. I wouldn't have thought it would change that drastically, but if you look at old pictures of me, it's like pointed. It's like old pictures of my face. It's kind of not filled and kind of angular at the bottom. And on testosterone, it's just gotten more and more round. And that was really interesting. I didn't know that would happen, and I, again, didn't really notice until other people pointed it out, and they were looking at old pictures of me, and they were like, your face looks different. And I was like, really? And I started looking, and yeah, it's like, it looks more full now. I think before it was kind of thin. I don't know what the right words are to describe what it was, but it just was like more flat. I don't know what the words are, but that was definitely a very interesting change, and I did not expect it going in. Muscle is another major topic for testosterone. Can definitely tell the difference. English. I've been doing a lot of moving this year, and so I have to lift a bunch of things as I'm moving, and there's definitely a difference. Just a difference without me even working on my arms that much. Arms are like the last thing I work out. I don't like working on arms. But there's definitely an inherent difference. I haven't even done anything to work on, and I can just lift things that I could not have lifted before. So it's very fascinating to have those interactions, and it does feel good. I'll be honest. There are times where I do take some pride in it. Even if it's not my favorite thing, there's definitely trans men out there that take joy in muscles more than me. But it is nice to have, and it's something I hope to work on one day. I just have some very different priorities right now. There's a lot of other things going on in my life. All right, we're on the last 3 pros that I want to talk about. We have bottom growth. So this is one of the most interesting changes on testosterone, I guess we'll say. Not everyone has it. I have had it. I wouldn't say I've had it to a substantial degree. I have heard of people having much more impact to it than me. But I am happy with what I've had. There may be a few caveats that we'll talk about in cons, but I like it. It's weird. I'll be very honest. It's weird. It's different. But I'm pretty happy with it. And I will say I haven't really had much bottom dysphoria at all. Not in recent memory. I haven't had any. So I would say it's kind of doing its job as well. So very interesting, just in terms of like, I didn't know how I'd feel about it per se, because you get very used to what you have. So that changing is a prospect. I'm not gonna say it's an interesting prospect, but it's something. But no, I do find it interesting, and it's definitely different. And I would say more sensitive in general, which is kind of the con. It can be too sensitive at times, but it's definitely a different experience. So there's that. Second to last one, my feet are bigger. That's just like a random thing I wanted to throw out. My feet have grown, and I'm actually a little taller. Not like my height got taller, but my feet are bigger, which makes me a little taller. Not much, just enough to be taller than my friend who we were the same height. So that was very interesting, and I actually had to I didn't have to like buy new shoes, but I had to break out my shoes that were larger than my smaller shoes. So that's a change I was not anticipating either. I haven't really seen many people talk about it. So yeah, my feet grew. Who'd have knew? I think also my shoulders are broader, but I don't really have proof of that. So I didn't want to directly mention it per se. Last major pro is passing. I mean, this one's kind of a given, but I've been passing substantially this summer, more than I ever have had before. I've been addressed as Mr. and Sir a lot this summer, which I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, it's kind of weird. I don't think Sir is merited for me. I'm kind of just a weird, small-ish, nerdy guy. Young-ish, nerdy guy. I don't know who would look at me and give me the Sir treatment, but it's happened four times this summer, so I guess. Um, it's been a little weird, but in general, I've been passing kind of across the board. I even had someone at work who hadn't met me before, even though we are in the same department, not realize until I told them, which I was a little surprised about because I thought it was kind of obvious with like my behavior and how I talk and those things. But no, they completely didn't know until I brought it up. So I'm definitely reaching like a new level of passing, and I am very happy with having that ability to pass. And I do feel very comfortable passing, I would say like 95% of the time. You may be wondering, what's that other 5% of the time? There are times that I want to pass as a trans man, and that's just a me comfort thing. I don't necessarily want to live as a cis man 100% of the time. I want to live as like a cis man the majority of the time, but also be myself, which is a trans man, and not necessarily have to fit all the expectations of men. That's just kind of my take. I don't really want to be like a token vision of a man, and I kind of want people to be able to look at me and know I'm queer, without, yeah, I don't really want to be mistaken as cis and straight. That's just not something I want to be. It's also just not something I think I am. Just with my personality and how I act and whatever, I think it just fits more if it's a noticeable thing. That's just the conclusion I've come with for myself. I 100% respect people who want to be able to pass as the complete cis man. But it's not necessarily my goal. My goal is just kind of my goofy version of whatever. Goofy version. I think maybe I go into it a little bit too much. I'm still trying to find a balance, but yeah. So, overall, I've been passing a lot and definitely feel very, very good about that. And it's made for some interesting conversations and some interesting perspectives of the world. So, love all of those things. With all that said, we'll get into some of the cons. These are things I just want to point out to people who are considering HRT. Just things to be aware of. Not trying to scare anyone away, or play down anything either. I kind of just want to tell you the things I have noticed that are cons or just not positive changes, and just get those out of the way. So, let's start off with snoring. I did not snore before I started HRT. And starting at like, I think it was the 8-month mark, 7-month mark, somewhere in there, I started snoring. And when I moved back in with my roommate that after that summer, they pointed it out to me and teased me for it a lot. So that was definitely a noticeable change. And apparently it's like kind of bad. It's not even like, oh, like he started like quietly snoring. It's like he's loud snoring. So that's been a change that I didn't know would happen. I knew about like sleep apnea and other things, but I didn't know I was gonna start snoring. And I think like in general, my throat is kind of, there are times where it feels like it's more full, and maybe that's part of why, I don't know, but that's definitely been a new development. There were obviously voice cracks for a lot of the period. I mean, this is second puberty. So definitely got a bunch of teases about voice cracks. And there are definitely times that my voice hurt after going to an event. Not even like a concert. I haven't gone to a concert since I started HRT, but actually, I lied. I did go to a concert, but it was a very quiet concert, not a loud one. But like I went to a drag show and I can't cheer anymore. It just cuts off at a particular volume, and my throat can feel super dry with just a little bit of talking in a loud environment. So like, for example, I went to a department meeting with my work earlier this summer, and it's not even at the loudest place, pretty open, kind of like cafeteria place. But my throat was hurting afterward. It really doesn't take a lot for my throat to like get dry and for me to like struggle speaking, particularly if I'm having to raise my voice for a prolonged period of time. I don't know how much of that is a result of just being on HRT and things are like actively changing, or how much of it is going to go away after I finish like the puberty part and start like aging with testosterone. So I don't know if that will last, but it's definitely something I've noticed in these 2 years. There's definitely times it's been worse than others. I think the voice cracks are mostly gone, to be honest. There's definitely occasional ones, but it's really not that bad. It's mostly just the volume thing. It's hard to raise my voice, and it's hard to talk in loud places for a period of time. Something else I've noticed, and this is perhaps not true for everyone, but it's true for me. Before I started HRT, I kind of had a pretty particular voice pattern. I've talked about this before. And I go like into highs and lows in my speech. Something I've noticed with HRT is that it kind of takes more effort to not be monotone. I think by default, I have a lot more of this like neutral tone. And because it's lower, it kind of sounds more disinterested or unemotional or some other word here. And so sometimes if there's a conversation that like I shouldn't be those things, it takes a little bit of effort to like make sure my enthusiasm is noticeable in my voice. I definitely have it and I feel that way, but sometimes the voice doesn't match how I'm feeling, and I just have to be aware of that in order to like put more inflection or emphasis or whatnot into my voice. It kind of falls into the gay accent, ironically. I'm gradually working my way over there because it makes it so there's more emotion and like general like brightness in my speech versus like when I'm just kind of talking with coworkers sometimes, it's just very like straightforward. I'm just talking and like I did this thing with this thing and this thing to achieve this goal. And like it gets kind of like mellow. Not necessarily bad, but again, to fit my personality, I think it makes more sense to have a lot more like inflection in things because that's just who I am. Versus a very like flat voice. It doesn't feel like it fits me very well. And the times that I've rewatched a video where I have that flat voice, there's one of these videos where I was like kind of whispering because my roommate was sleeping. And that video is kind of uncomfortable for me. I did not enjoy watching through that. So there's some cons to the voice changes. Next up, acne. Who'd have thought? Still dealing with it. Not nearly as bad as before, though, I have to say. A lot of these are actually kind of scars from old acne, but a lot of the acne is a lot worse earlier on in the transition, definitely the first year in particular. And I was very bad at dealing with acne. I always had been. I had a lot of acne in my first round of puberty. Like, it was really bad. And I had shoulder acne pretty much since my first round of puberty, so this was just an extension of it. But it is actually going away very recently. The shoulder acne that I've had my whole life since I was a teenager is going away. And so that's kind of a big plus, but in terms of the con, you get more acne. It's part of puberty. Not really much to do about it other than use more acne cleansers or like things that minimize oil and such. But you definitely have to take more care and don't interact with it. I'm not great at that, so it's been something to deal with. Posture. So you've probably noticed I've been changing my posture a lot in this video. I really struggle staying in the same posture now. And I think it's because there's more weight with the fat distribution. There's also just general weight gain. Because there's more weight, I kind of feel inclined to like lean forward. And I've always had that where I shrimp a little partially because of chest dysphoria as well, so I can't say that that's the only reason. But yeah, I think I again need to work out and maybe do a lot of like spinal things or shoulder things. I've been told that I really should do shoulder things to help with this and with like rib pain I have, which is also due to my chest, but also doing shoulder workouts. I think there's like a shoulder workout where I like you do this. Shoulder workouts will apparently really help with my posture, and it's something I need to do but haven't done. So in general, I've had to be a lot more aware of my posture recently, and I've even had to stop laying on my stomach. Again, that's due to chest pain, which is my fault, not anything to do with HRT. But it's applicable to HRT in that part of it is due to some of the changes of HRT, the fat distribution, the broadness of the shoulders, and just having more weight in general, causing a difference in posture. Definitely how I stand, too. I definitely alternate my weight a lot. That was true before, but now it's actually because there is too much weight on my feet at times. If I've been standing all day, it's very noticeable that I have more weight than usual compared to before, and my body isn't fully adapted to that. My legs are stronger. I have been working out my legs. That's the one thing I can consistently work out. But it took some time to get into that habit, and you could tell that my shins and stuff could sometimes hurt from holding the new weight and not working out. So once I started working out, that became more consistent, and now it's mostly just a posture thing that changes depending on how I feel the weight. Again, this isn't a one-to-one. This can be a combination of several things, but I thought it was worth mentioning that it is possible to have if you start HRT. Clothes. Oh boy. I had to replace most of my wardrobe. I kind of knew that was going to happen, but I was hoping it would only happen once. I ended up having to do it 2 to 3 times. The biggest things were the waistband, obviously, growing as the stomach goes out, and the hips regretfully stay kind of the same in terms of like their width, because it's kind of bone on the edges here. So a lot of waistband adjustments, but also again, there's that broadness of shoulder. Again, I don't have proof of it, but I definitely had to change my shirt size, and I'm pretty sure it is because of the shoulders. It's not the lower part, it's like up here that doesn't fit. So definitely had to do some adjustments with all of that, and it's expensive to have to buy new clothes. It's also kind of annoying because it's difficult to find things that fit as a trans man, particularly if you aren't binding, which I haven't been binding in quite a while now. We'll talk about that later. Particularly without binding, getting clothes with the right width, but also the ability to go forward, but not be too long. Most of these button-up shirts I get are like to my knees. It's really bad. And so then I have to wear shirts tucked, but I don't like wearing shirts tucked because it highlights my hips, which I hate. So there's been a lot of that going on, and the problem with the waistband, particularly with men's pants, which I only wear men's pants for the pockets, no other reason, I'll be honest, it's just for the pockets. But men's pants, I'll find the right waistband, but it'll be too long. Honestly, it's not the worst problem to have. I could easily just go to a cheap tailor and say, can you cut off some of the length and get the right length? I just haven't taken the time to do that because I want to make sure I'm not done with changing the clothes sizes before I do that. So that's kind of where I'm at. But I definitely hope to have clothes that I love and that fit in the future. And I'm very much looking forward to having that ability. I just don't right now, and I think my work is used to me wearing things that don't quite fit because I just don't have the ability, and I think they understand that. It's just a little weird. It doesn't quite fit the clothes that people wear in the workspace always. Something I have found recently is there are these like loose cloth polos at places like Sam's or Costco that are loose enough that they actually work really well, even without binding. They're very comfortable, and because they're loose, they can kind of adapt to the right size. So you can get one that ends right at the right spot, but like it like, I don't know how to describe it, it like settles. That's been pretty good. The other problem with not binding is that these button-ups, you can see the gap, and if you're not binding, there's nothing there. If you're not wearing a bra either. And so I've had to start wearing these like undershirts, like tank tops. Anytime I have the hiccups, sorry. Anytime I'm wearing a button up like this, I now have to wear these tank tops. And I used to kind of hate tank tops. It's weird. Teenage years, I loved tank tops, and then at some point I just switched. I hated them. And so I was very unsure about wearing them again, but they've actually grown on me. I didn't feel good at first. But I've gotten used to it again, and I kind of want to get more. So there's that. That's it for clothes. Going on to dysphoria. So one of the things I was warned about before starting HRT is that it won't get rid of all dysphoria. It will maybe even strengthen some dysphoria. To explain what they meant by that, you will have a bunch of your dysphoria satisfied. So for example, my facial hair, bottom growth. Sorry. Facial hair, bottom growth, like those things, I don't feel dysphoria for anymore. But because I don't feel dysphoria of those things, when I feel chest dysphoria, for example, or hip dysphoria, it feels very strong. And I think it's kind of an adaptation thing. The more you take away, the more the quieter things get more attention, or the things that were loud but not as important are now just seemingly loud. So that is definitely something I've noticed. My chest dysphoria, my hip dysphoria, those are the two that are remaining. And it's not always bad, but there are times that I very much wish it wasn't a thing. So it's something I've been putting more and more thought into over time. Next thing, talk about dryness. So there's something called vaginal atrophy, and it's a side effect of testosterone. They make solutions for it. There's like topical creams and stuff like that that you can use. Or just, what is it called? I think it's just lotions now that have gained a lot of popularity recently. Just stuff like that. But there are solutions to having dryness. I don't interact with it too much. It's definitely happened at times. And I'm not even talking about like for activities. I mean like day to day. I've had day-to-day dryness a handful of times, and sometimes it's at work, and that's like really the space where I don't really know what to do about it, where it's dry, so I'm like, oh, I gotta adjust, but then I'm like adjusting every few seconds because the combination of bottom growth causing it to rub against my underwear and the dryness can be a lot sometimes, especially with the extra sensitivity from bottom growth. Can be very uncomfortable and like kind of painful. So there have been times that I've started like packing like a little thing of lube, just to have comfort, not for any other purpose. It's just like things can be really dry and very like raw, and there just has to be something to help with that. So it's something I've started having to do occasionally. And it's something to be aware of, particularly if you already have dryness before HRT, definitely be aware of that. But it might be something you have to deal with going forward, just because that's the nature of testosterone interacting with the AFAB body. Alright, those were all of my major cons. We're not going to get into like medical things like heightened cholesterol or stuff like that because I don't have any personal experience with that. And I can only really talk from my personal experience. I don't know my chances. There's been no unexpected changes in my blood work. I've had blood work actually 4 extra times. So like there's the standard blood work schedule for trans men, and I've done it an additional 4 times for other reasons. And every time they've checked my testosterone, everything's just been A-okay. Like all the levels are the expected level for a cis man and nothing out of the ordinary. So can't speak much to those things. But if you are looking into HRT, it is your responsibility to look at all the medical effects and make decisions on those effects. I think a major one is fertility, stuff like that. I've already made my decisions and been happy with those risks, so there's not much to talk about here because I've already made my decision on the matter. Lastly, for this section, talking about all the changes within 2 years on testosterone, what things have not had an effect on me, or what effects have I not seen? I still don't really feel anger. There's a lot of people who report an increase in anger. Anger is not an emotion I feel often. I won't say that I don't feel it. I mean, it happens at times, but it's definitely rarer for me. Out of all the emotions, one of the rarest. Usually when I feel anger, it's towards myself. And that's kind of always been true. That's not something new. That's something I've felt since, 10 years old, maybe even 8 years old. It's just a thing I've always felt. So I wouldn't say that there's been much change in anger, and in general, emotional swings aren't too different. I think what I would say is that there are emotional swings from being on hormones, who'd have thought? But it's mostly when I miss a dose, and I usually don't realize it's happening. But afterward, I'll be like, oh, I think there maybe was some extra emotion going on there. Honestly, that's really kind of the same with how I had emotional swings during my cycles beforehand. It's not too different from that. If your cycle isn't on time or whatever, maybe you feel some fluctuation in emotion. It's kind of the same thing where if I miss a dose of testosterone, then maybe I'll have some fluctuation in emotion. But it's really not too abnormal, and I wouldn't say it's significantly impacted me other than 1 week. But I think that was also just a high stress week for me. I think just like with cycles, if you have super high stress and a cycle, things build up. I think I had the same thing where I had a super high stress week. I moved, all these other things were happening. I had a lot of responsibilities and stuff going on at work. And I missed a dose of HRT, and that combination was not pleasant. So definitely some awareness there, but overall, I wouldn't say my emotions are that different than before. I can't tell if there are any changes in my hairline. This is something that we've tried to look at a few times, and I still don't know. I feel like this is higher than before, but it's not something I notice. I'm not good at noticing facial features, I'll be honest. It's definitely not my specialty. It's not something I really notice about people. So I don't really know how different it is, but I'm very not worried about it, I'll be honest. My father has some balding, but he had pretty full hair until he was, I don't know how old my father is, but his age now is when he's starting to bald, and I'm fine with that. I can just wear hats, honestly. And on my father's side, or on my mother's side, my grandfather has full head of hair. So I'm really not too worried. If it happens, it happens. I don't think it looks like bad on people, particularly like baldness. I don't think that looks bad on people per se. It's kind of just how you embrace it that really makes the difference. So that's my take. But I haven't been able to tell any changes, even if I look. It's just I can't tell. I also can't tell if my chest has changed. I think it did, but I don't actually have a reference to before I started HRT, so I can't confirm. It could also be the result of not binding or wearing bras, and they just sag over time. It's possible. I don't know, but they feel different. I don't know if I'm still the same chest size I was before, but I'm unwilling to get checked. Like, I'm unwilling to measure, just due to the comfort of measuring. I did briefly try to measure for another binder, and it's just not comfortable. I don't like interacting too much with my chest nowadays, particularly in like those contexts. And then the last thing that I'm unsure if there's an effect is smell. It's mostly that I just don't have a sense of smell. And I don't really want to ask people. I'm a little scared to ask people how the smell is different, so I don't know. But a lot of people report a change in how they smell, so it's very likely. I mean, particularly with something like HRT, I would expect that to be the case. Sweat. there is a lot of sweat, so I guess that inherently comes with smell. Been sweating a lot. I mean, particularly now that I'm living in a very hot place, it's pretty brutal, I'll be honest. But I'm kind of used to it. It's, again, mostly the sweat is chest sweat, and that bothers me because emphasis on my chest. I'm even having to like wipe under my chest. I don't like that, for very obvious reasons. So, speaking of chests, we have now finished talking about all the things I wanted to mention for changes in the 2 years. There's probably some other changes that I didn't mention, but this is already going to be a long video regardless, so we're going to move on into my announcements. My very recent announcement, my new news about my trans journey. Not directly related to HRT, but related to a 2-year anniversary of HRT. I have now scheduled a consult for top surgery on November 3rd this year. And that is a very big deal for me. So I don't know if y'all recall, in the past I've mentioned possibly doing top surgery, but being unsure for a few reasons. One, cost. 2, being in school, like finding the time to do it and not interrupt work and other things. 3, not wanting to really impact or harm my nipples. It's one of the few things I actually don't hate that are traditionally female. I think I was actually pretty comfortable with my nipples, just not the actual chest part. And so I was unsure about that, and it just sounded like a huge commitment, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to make the decision. I've spent a lot of this summer really thinking about it and doing full research into it, and my chest dysphoria has just been ramping up over time, and I just decided it is time. I have a year break before I start graduate school, and I definitely don't want to do it during graduate school. That sounds like a disaster. So really thinking about the timing and the motivations I have, I knew it was time to do it. So I've initiated that process. If you're wondering what all I've done so far, I had to pick a place. That was definitely an endeavor. Initially, I reached out to the places that I originally thought would work and found out very quickly that my insurance is not accepted at those places and the cost is high. And so I looked around for more places, and I found one that many of my friends have actually gone to before and had their insurance covered, and my insurance is the same. So I decided to go to that place rather than to a local place. The problem with that is going to be traveling, so actually getting plane flights and hotels and all those things. That will be complicated and expensive, I will flat out say that. But I believe it to be worth the cost, particularly for a place where my entire surgery is covered. So my plan, not because I wanted to, but because my friends have bullied me into it. Love my friends. I will be making a very small Kickstarter, just for like hotel fees, probably. Because I'm not just paying for myself, I'm also paying for whoever's taking care of me as I'm recovering. And that cost is also going to add up. For 10 days, I believe we have to stay downtown in a very famous, very touristy city. So it won't be a cheap cost. I'll be very honest about that. But again, I believe it is worth it. Picked my surgeon, and now I'm in the process of sending over my reference photos. I already sent a letter from a therapist, which I got, and I actually do not need a letter from a care provider just due to which insurance I have, which is actually a little surprising. I was really expecting to need to have that. I already talked to my care provider. She was ready to write one, but it turns out I don't need one, which is interesting. But got a letter from a therapist, reached out to the center, picked a surgeon, and now I have to find reference photos. I have kind of decided on double incision. Originally, I was thinking about inverted T, but upon more reflection and research, I just don't think it's worth it. Pretty much what I would gain from inverted T is potentially keeping more of my nipple structure as it is, and I definitely want that. but I don't know if I want that at the cost of more scarring, some more risk. And it's also just harder to find reference pictures for inverted T because a lot of people do double incision. Double incision is pretty straightforward, pretty respectable, gets good results. And so, the more I think about it, the more I'm pretty content with double incision, and I don't really want to challenge that. So the real thing I've been looking at recently with my reference pictures is just like the placement of where things will be and how full. I won't get too deep into it because I'm sure I'll talk about all this as the consultation and potentially surgery comes up. I'm looking to get surgery in early spring next year, so spring 2026. It'll be happening. Period. It's happening. But I definitely do have to determine where I want to put them and how much fullness do I want. I don't necessarily want like super flat. I think it will look weird if it's super flat and then I have a belly, if you know what I mean. I think there's a balance between the two. I am aware that as you age, they will get bigger. Either, weight gain or fat or just age, honestly. Things change. And so knowing that they will grow bigger, I'm going to go a little bit smaller than I want, per se. Like a little bit smaller of what I want, and then it'll become what I want. Particularly if I work on like muscle on my chest, which you kind of have to after surgery, but even after surgery, I will want to have a very particular chest shape, I suspect. As I work on muscle, it will look the way I want it to look. So those are all things I'm keeping in mind, and this is all stuff I am actively working on. A lot of research. I'm going to say that I kind of came into it thinking there'd be a lot more hoops to jump through. And so it kind of feels easy for me, mostly because I was a pessimist. I was assuming I was going to have to do like 15 things, and instead I only had to do like 9. Still a lot, but really not too bad. I think the most annoying thing so far, other than finding the place, it was difficult. It wasn't easy. But I think the most annoying thing so far was taking pictures, like the before surgery pictures for myself. I was struggling to do it by myself, particularly like with the particular poses and whatnot. And I just moved recently, so I don't know too many people here. So I had to ask someone who I'm friends with, but I'm not too close with, to do it for me. A little awkward, not very typical thing. And I'm a little worried the pictures actually aren't up to spec for what the surgeons want. So I'm going to send them in and we'll see if it is good. If not, I'm going to have to ask them to take them again. And yeah, it's not great. I mean, there's not much I can do about it, but not the greatest situation. But yeah, all of that has been happening. Pretty big deal. When I was asking for the therapy letter, we were talking about like my trans experience. And really, it was 2 years before I started HRT because I really wanted to be certain about that decision. And ironically, it's been 2 years since I started HRT since I made the decision on top surgery. So really, it turns out 2 years is the amount of time that I really take to consider something before I do it. And I think that's accurate because there's some other things I've been thinking about for 2-ish years that I'm about to take the leap onto, graduate school and some other things. So yeah, but pretty big announcement that will be coming up soon. Okay, finally, we're going to talk about just generally how I interact with the world and how I'm feeling overall. I am feeling fantastic. I am so comfortable right now. I will say that there are some areas of difficulty with my social interactions. Dating is a horrifying prospect still. I just cannot find comfort with it either. It's weird. I don't want to take the risk of passing while dating. I kind of want people to know beforehand because then there's less risk of surprise or whatever. But even then, there's definitely chasers out there. I've definitely run into several. It exists. Not necessarily super bad. it's pretty easy to notice. At least for me, so far, it's been easy to notice when it's happening. But it does make it hard to just find people in general. A lot of people are looking for cis people. It's just how it is. So that is an area of life that I've been very uncertain on. I kind of just haven't really been exploring it, just because it's scary. It's really scary, honestly, particularly at my age and lack of experience. Um, for everyone involved, there's definitely more steps if you're in a relationship with a trans person, just inherently, because there's a lot more communication that needs to happen, and trust and other things. So, just wanted to throw that out there. It's not something I've really talked about on the channel, but it's definitely true. As for work interactions, things have been going pretty smoothly. I think that my work, most of the people at my work are pretty accepting. Even if they don't necessarily understand it and don't want to interact about it, they're still content with my understanding of the world and being able to understand that I have my point of view and acknowledge it from a distance. You know what I mean? Of like, they will talk their way, I will talk my way, and we'll be great. Like, we will get along enough to keep working. That's really the worst case scenario I've run into at work. No one's really been rude to me since that first summer at my work, and that was more so because people didn't realize, because I wasn't passing. But now that I'm passing at work most of the time, it's pretty great. And I've gotten a little bit more comfortable talking about it at work. I'm trying to stop doing that though, because I really should separate. My opinion is that I should separate my identity from the workplace, mostly due to my workplace. It's not really something that needs to come up, frankly. So that's an opinion I've been gradually building up as well socially. But pretty content. My parents, if you are curious, won't get too much into family, but my parents are pretty content with the changes as well. They've really kind of embraced it. They buy me occasionally, like when it's like the holidays, they'll buy me male clothes that actually fit really well. I don't know how they know how stuff fits me better than I do, but they do. I don't know how they do it. So they'll give me clothes that fits, and my mom will comment on facial hair when she sees it grown out or whatnot. And it feels good. It feels good to like have that support. They're not very like direct supporters, I'll be honest. I don't interact too much with them, but when I do, they're pretty supportive. And since I told my mom that I was really like actually doing top surgery, she's been very, very upfront and being like, you better have the hotel, you better have all this stuff planned out. And I'm like, okay, I mean, this is high stress, but also thank you for like helping me with this. So it's very nice to be able to have that. They definitely were not expecting that I was going to go through all of this when I was a teenager, but they've adapted pretty well, and not everyone can say that, I'll be honest. So thank you to my parents for going through all of this with me for 4 years now. 2 years with the physical changes. It's probably fascinating to see your child change their looks so much, twice. First puberty and then second puberty. It's probably an experience, I'll be honest. So that's interactions with family, interactions with work. We had interactions romantically. My friends have all just commented that, again, I'm more confident and more kind of enthusiastic at times, very like outward with my emotions. So a lot of their comments have all been regarding that. They've commented that my voice is super different and they kind of hate my old voice. So there's that. I think at times we can be high stress with each other. Either I'm being too oversharing now that I'm comfortable talking, I kind of overshare too much. Or I just don't know social limits. So there's some of that, but there's also just general conflict that happens occasionally, and still learning to deal with that. Because again, I grew up particularly in high school, not really talking to people. So now that I do talk to people as a result of my confidence with HRT and my like stronger love of self, now I actually need to learn how to talk with people better. So that's kind of been something I've been working through along the way as well. Anything else? I already mentioned wanting to get into like role playing those things. I did earlier this summer wear a corset for the first time, and that was definitely an interesting experience. I will say that it doesn't really look good because it just doesn't fit to these. I'm hoping post-top surgery, post-healing and everything, to be able to get like a male corset. I think that would be awesome. I really look forward to being able to do that. I mentioned that I shaved my legs earlier, and I did kind of enjoy that. I wouldn't say I enjoyed it enough to like keep doing it, but I think I'll periodically do it whenever the mood strikes me. I kind of want to try skirts again too. I got a skirt earlier this summer for Ren Fair, mostly because that'd be way more comfortable for Ren Fair than pants, because you're like dying in the heat in the summer. It's terrible. So I wore a skirt, but it's a floor-length skirt, so honestly, to me, it didn't feel any different than wearing shorts. I don't know if that makes sense, but if you're wearing like baggy male shorts, I think that experience to me is the exact same as wearing a floor-length skirt. You don't really feel the fabric much, and so it's kind of just you're covered, and that's it. There isn't much else thought I had. I just was like comfortably walking around and not dying of wearing jeans or whatever. So, but I do want to try skirts again at some point. I don't think I'm there yet. It's not something I really want to do yet, but at some point I want to look into that. And then I guess club attire. So I've been kind of playing with the idea of going to a local queer club, but it's difficult to find an event that aligns, and again, I have a lack of friends here. I think if I were to go to a club space, I'd want to go with someone, and there just isn't anyone to go with. My throat's starting to die. Evidence of the cons list. There isn't anyone I want to go with, but for the sake of pride, I went ahead and got together like a kind of clubby outfits. Definitely more out there than I ever wore before. Before I knew I was trans, I dressed very long sleeve pants, no revealing anything. I can't even reveal like arms. And part of that was chest dysphoria, but I just wasn't comfortable revealing skin ever in any way. It just wasn't my thing, and my mom was very much against it too. So that combination of things, I never really tried it. But for Pride this year, I kind of wanted to try like wearing a binder and then wearing like a mesh shirt, because that's just kind of a standard Pride attire. So I tried that out, and I wore like a jacket so that I was more comfortable. So like there was the mesh, but then there was still something covering. And that balance I was actually pretty solid with. I enjoyed it. Taking off the jacket, I wasn't quite there yet. So gradually exploring the extents of my comfort. So I think HRT has put me in a place where I am very happy with myself and comfortable with myself, that I have more room to test those barriers and go outside of my comfort zone for one purpose or another, and try to like push where all the boundaries are. So that's really what a lot of this discussion is, with things like skirts, corsets, leg hair, and mesh shirts. Those are all areas where I want to challenge my comfort, and just give myself more options. Again, it's not something I would do like day to day. I am not the kind of person to wear a skirt daily or, stuff like that. But I would like to wear it for occasion, particularly for like cosplaying, Ren Fair, these other nerdy things that I enjoy. I would like to be able to do it, and it'd be interesting to be able to do drag at least once. So that's kind of a goal I have hovering in the distance, but we're not there yet. We're going to work on some other things first, including the chest. So Alright, that is all I had for the video at large. But we're going to do a full voice reading to close it out, just so we have a voice reading for the 2-year mark. I may have forgotten to open it, so just give me a second. I have it memorized, but just in case. I will say that when I was editing that montage, I noticed a mispronunciation of one of the words once, and that was kind of annoying. Oh, I can't open it. Oh, I can. We can cheat. Okay. Shifting Tides, written by me. This is a poem I wrote at the very beginning of this. I think month 1, I wrote the poem, and then month 3 or so, I named the poem Shifting Tides. So this is a poem I wrote for the voice reading, and we'll do it again today. An inlet of rock and sand by the sea, it is I that you see. For many years the waves lapped against me. I shifted to greet them from time to time, but in others I was shy, hiding my coast. They were an expected presence, a constant in my youth. Slowly, though, I grew tentative of them. Asked the tide, why scrape at me? She answered, nothing has changed. Surely something did, for now I feel pain. The waves grew taller all the same. In high tide, I reshaped my front, while in low, I was left to deliberate. Were allies brought to my tidal gates? Investigating a smooth shell one day, I thought he looked rather plain, but then a friendly claw turned him over, revealing rainbow swirls and tear-streaked truth. I was too quick to blame the tide, too naive to behold the moon. A cove is always changing shape, forming a haven in each wake. An inlet of rock and sand by the sea, it is I that you see. I hope you all have a good rest of your 2025, and I'll see you all whenever I do my first top surgery update. Have a good one. Bye-bye.